Welcome to Learning with Mr. V. I'm Mr. Fainter, and today we'll be digging into economic geography, one of the more difficult aspects, but I'm hoping to make it easier for you so you can really ace the upcoming exam. So, what we'll be looking at today is the overview of the structure of the economy. So, that's the four sectors: your primary, secondary, tertiary, and quaternary sectors of the economy. And then we'll be doing a deep dive into the very first sector, being the primary sector, because so much of economic geography is linked to the primary sector, especially in terms of the focus areas for this year. Because you'll see, we'll be digging into small scale and large scale farming, then the agricultural product for this year, which is beef farming. The primary sector continues with mining in general, and then we'll be looking at the mining product, which in this case is coal. So let's dig in, starting with the structure of the economy. But first, what is important for you to know for your upcoming exams? What exactly do you need to know for these upcoming exams? And this is very important. You need to know the definition of each sector. You also need to be able to provide examples of the activities that take place in each of these sectors. You also need to state the importance of each of them and also where they are located. Then you also need to be able to define the GNP as well as the GDP and distinguish the differences between them as well. And you also need to be able to interpret each sector's contribution to the GDP from graphs and charts. So these are the things you need to bear in mind as you're now going to go into the exam. These are the things that you need to be able to do when it comes to the structure of the economy. So let's have a look at that. So the primary sector involves the extraction and harvesting of raw, natural and unprocessed products from the earth, such as beef and other meats, maize, milk, minerals such as gold ore and platinum ore, etc. And then these activities associated with a specific sector is in mining, forestry, fishing, hunting, gathering, agriculture and farming, which includes both subsistence as well as commercial farming. Then you have the secondary sector. So the secondary sector then receives all these raw, natural and unprocessed materials that were gathered in the primary sector and then processes them to manufacture or transform them into goods. So then these will include your manufacturing, your building, your construction, and also very important to take note of the light industries, the heavy industries, the raw material orientated, the market orientated, the bridge or break of bulk, the footloose, and the ubiquitous industries. All of these you need to be able to define and know for the upcoming exam. But this is something to look at in a next video. But do bear in mind, concepts are extremely important. You need to know your concepts in order to be able to define them within your exam. Then you have your third sector, the tertiary sector. Now, this is the service sector. So it's all about services that are provided to consumers. All about services. So this sector includes the following activities: financial, professional, so your health, your education, your tourism, your recreation, your entertainment, your local government, and your police. And then all personal services, retail, wholesale, transport, and communications all fall under the tertiary sector. Every single one of them falls under the tertiary sector. And then finally, we get to the quaternary sector. So the quaternary sector is associated with high levels of expertise and technology, as it is a sector involved in gathering, processing, and sharing information through research, GIS, and information technologies. So then these activities would include computer and information technology, telesales, data processing and spread of information, environmental management and conservation research. So that is an overview of the structure of the economy and the four sectors of the economy, being again primary, secondary, tertiary, and then quaternary. So that is the structure of the economy. But now let's really dig in to the first one, being the primary sector. So what is very important for you to know here? Again, pay attention to this. You need to be able to define each type of agricultural practices, such as small scale and large scale farming. Also be able to identify the factors that are either hindering or favoring these two types of activities. But now, this I put in all caps because it's very important for you to understand this, grade 12s. Pay attention to the focus area for this year. For this year, the focus area is beef farming. It is not maize. It is beef farming. Please be aware of that and study the correct notes and info. It is beef farming. So please don't waste your time on maize farming. It is beef farming. And so we're looking at the two types of agriculture here, small scale farming as well as large scale farming. So small scale farming is a production of crops and livestock that is intended for home consumption and a small portion for the home or local market using small plots of land and often using very, very little, even no technology at all. So it saves quite a lot on expenses. But then you've got large scale farming. So that's the production of crops and livestock specifically for commercial purposes like selling in retail stores and shops. And they spend and invest a lot of money in order to basically produce their crops. To know and understand, especially in agriculture, is the factors that favor agriculture. So we have a range of climates, making it possible for many different products. Most arable areas have at least 200 frost-free days. Subsistence farmers have also developed coping methods of dealing with moderate droughts. Much of the landscape is flat. Rivers and lakes can supply additional water. Exotic crops introduced can produce higher yields, and improved climate research has made drought prediction more accurate. So these are all the favors that factor agriculture in general in our country. But now we also need to consider the factors that hinder it. So only 7% of the land in our country is arable. Only 7%. Insufficient rain and a shortage of water. Poverty seriously limits agricultural development. Soils are typically thin, especially those on steep slopes. Foreign competition is often a serious hindrance. Many arable areas are too densely populated for farmers to develop commercial farms. And some exotic crops like maize produce good yields in years with enough rain, but are very poor in times of drought. You will see there's a graph there on the right hand side. This graph indicates the contribution of the different sectors and their activities to the country's economy. Now, do bear in mind this graph, you'll see in many papers and past papers as well, it's taken from the 2017 analysis of the GDP contributions. But now also, it is very important for you to know that definition. So GDP is the total value of goods and services produced within the borders of the country in a year. Now, what is the contribution to the economy by agriculture as a whole? So, agriculture contributes 3.1% to the GDP. It produces food, it develops infrastructure, it's an employer of labor, it supplies raw material to industries, and its exports earn foreign exchange. So this contribution to the economy also answers the question, Why is agriculture important? What is the importance of agriculture? And it's this: the contributions that it can make to the economy make this a very important sector in the economy. So the main agricultural products are your fruit, your deciduous, subtropical, and citrus fruits. You've got grain and seeds, so your maize, your wheat, your oats, your sunflowers, your canola, your livestock, your beef, your mutton, your pork, your ostrich, and you've got sugar and dairy. Now again, our focus for this year is beef specifically. But now, another concept you need to know is food security. So food security means you have access to reliable, sufficient, affordable, and nutritious food. However, on the other hand, you also need to now know its counterpart, food insecurity. So that's literally just the opposite. It's not having access to these reliable, sufficient, affordable, and nutritious food. So you do not have access to it. So factors contributing to food insecurity. There are physical factors. So the physical factors are your droughts, your floods, diseases affecting crops and animals, land degradation and soil infertility, climate change reduces food production, more frequent prolonged droughts as well. Then you've got your social, economic, and political factors. So a shortage of good farming land, labor unrest, which then causes a decrease in food production. Large areas are not farmed commercially, diseases in crops and stock, high production costs, foreign competition, poor infrastructure, the replacement of subsistence farming with cash crops, overcrowding, a lack of funds for agricultural research, a lack of capital to invest in supplies and machinery, and also the labor costs may be high. So, what are the measures that can be implemented to prevent food insecurity? Firstly, making sure that domestic agriculture continues to produce what is needed. Importing foods that cannot be produced cost effectively. Eradicating inequality and poverty. Exporting food excesses at good prices. Skills training of farmers, funding of farmers, promoting sustainable farming practices, addressing and resolving issues of land ownership, skilling of farmers, helping rural households to produce their own food, creating job opportunities, and improving food emergency management systems. So now, here's a little activity to test your knowledge, to make sure everything that you now have studied up to this point, that you've revised, that we've now gone through again, that you really have it under the knee, that you know exactly what's happening, that you can do tremendously in it and pass well, get your distinctions in economic geography. So we'll look at an activity based on food security. So you're given a source there, which is figure 3.6, which says research by the United Nations shows that there are about 7 billion people in the world today, a billion of them hungry. 40 years from now, there will be 9.2 billion people. To meet this demand, 70% more food will have to be produced than in 2000. International policies, such as the use of agricultural subsidies, has caused the cost of production in the USA and UK to drop. Thus, farming of certain products in poor nations such as Africa is not viable. US poultry can be landed in Africa cheaper than the cost of production in Africa. So refer to that figure. And the very first question, look at this again. Define the term food security. You need to know your concepts very well. Define the term food security. And as we said, that's having access to affordable, nutritious, sustainable food and food sources. However you would like to define it, that is what it is. But now they ask you something interesting. Why are poor countries like those in Africa not able to compete with rich countries to increase food production? So one of the answers is the use of agricultural subsidies, and this has caused the cost of production in the UK and US to drop. and then certain products in Africa is just not viable to farm. So Africa can't compete because there is no policy that basically could help them achieve their successes. And I'll show you the proper memo answer as well. But do you see how you need to be able to interpret sources? Geography is about definitions, interpretation, analysis, and application. That is what geography is all about. So you need to be able to do this stuff. And please also, when you do it, take note of the mark allocation. 2 times 2, so 2 facts for 2 marks. And be specific, elaborate on the stuff, the how, the why, the what, the where is geography. Don't just give one word answers and stuff. If you want all the marks and you want it properly, explain it properly. Then food insecurity has had many negative effects in certain countries. Name any 2 effects: diseases, death, whatever. 2 of them, once again, 2 marks. State 2 factors that have caused food insecurity in Africa: droughts, floods, you name it. Okay, this is stuff that is taken more from your general knowledge as well, not necessarily from the article. And then finally, the lovely paragraph question. Genetically modified crops are being promoted as a solution to food insecurity in Africa. Take the advantage and disadvantages of GM crops into account and write a paragraph of approximately 8 lines in which you discuss whether GM crops should be introduced into Africa. 4 times 2. So now let's look at how these should be answered. So there we've said it. Concept: when people have a permanent supply of sustaining food, higher production costs, agricultural subsidies, as we've said, hunger and famine, farming, subsidies, cheaper, decreased productivity rates, poverty, all of these contribute to it. Shortage of arable land, soil infertility, droughts, floods, incorrect farming methods, etc. Now, the paragraph question. So you could start off firstly by saying it might increase food security for the growing population, or you could say the opposite. It might not increase. It's not a solution. For 2 marks. They now mention an advantage. So GM crops are able to survive in a greater range of climate conditions, have greater nutritional value, more resistance to pests and diseases, have a longer storage life, and more food per hectare can be produced. Disadvantages: new seeds have to be planted each year, which is costly. Effects of GM crops on food are not known. Long-term effects on health are not known. They haven't been studied. Also, you can't get heirloom seeds with GM products, so that's why you have to replant it every year. So that can become a bit tedious as well. So our next sector, or next part of this in economic geography, is beef farming. Remember, that is our focus this year, is beef farming specifically. So what is important to know for the exam with regards to beef farming? You need to know the definition of beef farming, identify the factors that are favoring and hindering it, know how it can be improved, also how it contributes to the GDP. So beef farming here is a breeding of cattle with the purpose to sell it as beef or meat to the consumer. The meat from beef is used by consumers to feed themselves. So there's your definition. So factors favoring it. You can see approximately 80% of SA's agricultural land is suitable for extensive grazing. There's a high demand for beef products. Demand is more than production. Excellent research facilities to ensure cattle farming is adapted to local weather and environmental conditions. There's an availability of labor. Ports and airports for export trade. And South Africa has highly developed transport infrastructure that allows for transporting. But now there's also the factors that are hindering it. So human settlements and other activities such as mining, crop farming, forestry, and conservation are increasingly reducing the grazing land available for farming. So you've got drought, unreliable rainfall, diseases, foot and mouth disease and ticks, for example. You've got soil erosion and overgrazing, even natural disasters, your droughts, your floods. your fault fires, and then you've also got your crime. That could also be a contributing factor. But now your contribution to the economy. So your gross value of beef production is 37 billion rand. The export value is 2.5 billion, produces about 85% of locally consumed meat. Farmers contribute to taxes, which is used to develop the country by providing police services, building hospitals and schools. You develop infrastructure here by expanding the electricity network, road network, as well as communication network. Employer of labor of at least 2.1 million people, and it supplies the raw material to the different industries. But now, how to improve beef farming, or phrased differently, strategies to improve beef farming. So, start with education and upskilling of farmers, more technical support to small-scale cattle farmers, more funding to small-scale farmers, more research into scientific modern farming methods, better veterinary care for cattle, accessing better, cheaper feed, grazing for cattle, and promoting better breeding of cattle. Now, for this one, I would say pause the video here, read this properly, read through this figure, and then once you've now paused it, unpause it, go to the questions, and always go back to that text, answer these questions. So take your time, really answer them. And then once you've answered these questions as a test to yourself, then check the answers. Don't just rush to the memo, check the answers once you have actually completed it. Check whether you know it properly or not. And then we also get to mining. So what's important to know here again, and I'll restate this every time: definitions, definitions, definitions. Definitions are extremely, extremely important. And then the factors that favor and hinder it, the importance of mining. But now something that is added here with mining, and is also one of the key questions that relate to economic geography as a whole. What are the environmental and social responsibilities associated with mining? So pay careful attention to that, because there might be a question on this, specifically on environmental and social responsibilities associated with mining. There might be a question on this. And again, be sure you're studying the correct thing. It's coal for this year. It is not platinum, it is coal. Please make sure you're studying the correct things. So mining, the factors that favor mining. South Africa has a wide range of minerals. The quality and concentrations of minerals is very high. Most of the minerals are quite near the surface, reducing production costs. And South African rock layers also have a low thermal gradient. So these are all your factors favoring mining. Now, on the other hand, those that hinder it. Much of our mineral output is exported, and income from minerals is dependent upon changes in the rand-dollar exchange rate. Underground water is dangerous. The cost of wages is increasing. Many of our mines are far inland, and HIV/AIDS is affecting the workforce. The importance of mining. So SA has a wide variety of minerals. It employs over 1 million workers. It has created numerous other industries and services due to the ripple effect it has had on the economy. It brings in foreign revenue into the country, and it contributes large amounts of revenue to the SA government in the form of taxes. So this, now that we've covered these factors favoring and hindering and the importance of mining, as you will note, this is just for mining in general, because you can get questions on mining in general as well, not just those focused on coal mining, but mining in general as well. Now, the importance of mining continued. Mining contributed vastly to the GDP. The wealth derived from mining has funded the building of South Africa's infrastructure. Mines and the people they employ pay many billions of rands in taxes. And our coal provides for 92% of the electricity generated and for 30% of the liquid fuel production by Sasol. So the environmental responsibility. Now pay attention to this. Mining companies have to take greater care of the natural environments in which they operate. Mines have released acids and poisons into streams and into groundwater. So when mining operations cease, the environments have to be restored. Social responsibility. So some mining companies have been forced to make payments to workers and their families who got lung diseases from inhaling fine fibers that blew from an old asbestos mine. So here's our focus for this year. As a mining product, it is coal mining. So what is coal? It is a fossil fuel that is burned for energy or heat. Coal is formed when dead plant matter decays into peat, and over millions of years the heat and pressure of deep burial converts the peat into coal. So, factors favoring coal mining. The burning of coal is the cheapest way to produce electricity in South Africa. Clean coal technologies have been developed which will enable South Africa's move towards a greener future. South Africa's coal regions are well known, and well explored knowledge of the area is extensive. South Africa has large coal reserves and resources. Companies invest heavily in innovation and skills training to build an even greater understanding of the resource base and how to use it. And coal mining in South Africa is a well established industry with technical skills. But now, once again, on the other hand, the factors hindering coal mining. Negative views of the environmental impact of coal have resulted in a decline in its use. Renewable energy sources are taking the place of fossil-based energy sources. The proposed carbon tax will reduce the competitiveness of South Africa's producers. Financiers do not want to invest in coal power plants. Developments of Eskom have affected the sustainability and reliability of supply. The lack of rain and water, rail and water infrastructure are the main challenges in the development of new coal mines. South Africa's water scarcity means there's a lack of water infrastructure such as dams and canals, and mining competes with other sectors such as agriculture and manufacturing for land use. Contribution of coal mining to the economy provides employment to 85,000, or is it 86? Sorry, I can't see clearly there now. Okay, but a lot of people. It contributes to a lot of people and billions of rands. Employment is created through direct employment by mining companies and indirectly through contractors and suppliers of goods and services. Industry spent 56 billion rand procuring goods and services in 2018. Coal mining has a role to play in the development of human resources and infrastructure such as schools, colleges, clinics, roads, and housing. There's a lot of statistics on the importance and the contribution of mining to the economy right there. And that is it for today's lesson. I truly hope that you did learn something here on Learning with V, and that it may be a blessing to you in your exam and truly help you to get those tremendous results. Study well, and may it be awesome for you.